Hey, it's JJVirgin, and welcome to the JJVirgin Lifestyle Show, where we'll connect with some of the coolest people in the world. Plus, I'm going to give you tips that you can put into fast action to up-level your health and your life. Now, today's show is all about, well, here's the question. How far would you go to heal? If you were faced with something that was life-threatening, life-ending, how far would you go? I think if you've been around with me for any amount of time, you know that I will pretty much do whatever it takes. And in looking at things with my son's brain injury and also my dad dying of cancer, I've always been open to possibilities. What's out there beyond what we know here in the U.S., since there are some amazing things here, but then there's some things that are truly not working. So I was fortunate last summer to be in Cancun with a group of really awesome health people led by Dr. Pedram Shojai. And one of the guys there was Nick Polizzi. Now, I've met him a couple times, but I never had any time to really spend with him before going to Cancun and hanging out. And I learned so much more about him, and I had to bring him on the show. Let me tell you a little bit about him. You may know him. He's been in the space producing documentaries for years about holistic alternatives to conventional medicine. He did one on EFT. He did one on raw food diets. And all of his films have one common thread. They each put promising natural medicines to the test on daring patients who are suffering from real illnesses. Now, they're not theoretical. They're real. It's the real thing. It's like, you know, what I was joking on the show is it's kind of like the Survivor, reality show done as a documentary. This is the real stuff where you get to get right in there and see what it takes for someone to truly heal themselves. All the good about that, all the bad about that, and everything in between. So his latest film, and, you know, the guys were sitting around when he said he wanted to do this, and they're like, "Are you sure, Nick? Are you sure?" It's called Sacred Science. And it has been out now for a couple years, although as you'll hear, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm watching it now. I mean, you'll be so intrigued after this interview, you won't be able to not go watch it. And he had this just calling to go and learn from the indigenous people and, you know, to go and show these ancient knowledge and rituals, then show and protect them, honor them, preserve them. So it was super daring for him to do a big, courageous move. And it has been a huge success. So huge now that he's going to be doing a book around it as well. And at the end of the show, I'm going to show you how you can go watch the movie for free. So I am super excited to share Nick Polizzi with you today. All right, so let's do it. Nick, welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here with me today.
Honored to be here.
This is a crazy story that we're going to be talking about today. And, you know, I just got to jump in with, here you are, you know, average white guy from Connecticut, and now you're in the middle of the Amazon tracking down indigenous medicine men. What? Why are you doing this?
You know, it's weird. Like the first two films that we made were much more, I guess, safe, natural health films. We were checking out raw food diets and an energy healing technique called EFT, and we were interviewing a bunch of different experts for those, a bunch of well-known New York Times bestselling experts. And while we were interviewing them, every time the interview ended, I just had this one final question once the camera was off for each of them, and I would ask people like Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield who their teachers were. Who you're the guru. Who's your guru? And a lot of them, it's surprisingly enough, they would tell me, they would point to these indigenous cultures, these indigenous elders that they had been working with for some time, who had never seen the light of day in terms of mainstream media, and it intrigued me. I was like, well, so we have these major health experts, these major personal development experts that are always in front of the camera on films like The Secret and like that, and they. Their teachers are actually from a completely different lineage, So we decided we would explore these cultures, and that took us down to the Amazon.
So yeah, it's kind of like their little hidden secrets that you don't get to find out about until you talk to them. Now, you created this film in the Amazon, and it's got all of these rites of passage. So, which we don't really have these great rite of passage. I mean, you have a bar mitzvah, but like a lot of this stuff is just lost in Western culture. So what's important about the ceremony, ritual type of stuff?
I think, like you said, it's something that we used to have. We used to have rites of passage in our culture, but for me, as like this, like you said, this like average white guy from Connecticut, like my rites of passage were sort of, I grew up Christian, so I had a confirmation, but and a first communion. But I mean, no disrespect, but most kids who have those types of rites of passage, they ignore them. We're holding our nose and waiting for them to be over, hoping that we get like a check from our family for it, and that's really it. But we don't really have anything like that in our culture anymore. And I think that more than just, it being this kind of a threshold or marker for, your maturation as a person, there are these subtle understandings about life that we miss out on. I mean, most rites of passage in indigenous culture, it's really about confronting your own mortality, something that we as a Western culture are completely mortified of.
Oh yeah, we avoid that completely.
Like, you don't want to talk about it, and even more so, it isn't even just it isn't even like abhorred. It's literally ignored. And if you go into these other cultures, something I find very beautiful about South American, Central American cultures is it's completely celebrated. I mean, you can look at the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and take some cues from that, but it's really a part of the culture. It's something that is deeply ingrained in everyday life. So I think, something that we miss out on in this culture with our lack of rites of passage is just this mature look at our own mortality, the role we play in the unfolding of things in our life and the lives of those around us. And it feels like when with these individuals that have access to those types of ceremonies, you just see these adults who are much more grounded, much happier with their lives, and just physically and mentally healthy.
Well, so, it strikes me too as I'm listening to this is we have ageism in the U.S. and where youth is celebrated, and then you look at these cultures where being an elder is like such an honor and distinction, right? And it's not that way here, and it's just because I'm feeling that right now in my 50s. I'm like, wow, this is an interesting shift. Where someone asked a question in a group and completely dissed me the other day, and I'm like, whoa, as I wasn't a millennial. And I'm like, this is interesting because wouldn't we want to celebrate? We've got a lot more experience and information at this point, but that is how it is in the other traditions and not here. So I would love to bring that into the U.S. Maybe we should go on a little sprint of that.
You see how the youth and, the adolescents, revere the elders, and the way that they're, these folks don't ship their grandparents and, their grandparents off to Florida, and just kind of like get rid of them, as they get older. They actually become even more, a more crucial pillar of knowledge in the family, So something else that, I guess one other thing before we move on to the next question is another thing that I think is interesting about rites of passage are that they're planned. They're like, it isn't like, sometimes we in the West, we are faced with something that challenges us and shakes us at our core. But usually it's something that is unexpected. It's something that happens in your family. Your dog gets hit by a car, whatever it is. Something you can come down with some kind of an illness, or you lose your job and you have to now man up or woman up and kind of be better and evolve. But that's not planned. There's something cool about the fact that these rites of passage are planned. You as an individual know you're about to step into the fire. Mm-hmm. And there's something about that mentally that really works on you, and it can add a substantial layer of stress before the rite of passage, but there's something extremely beneficial to it. It's something that I feel like that fear and overcoming that fear and willingly putting yourself in a position of serious discomfort is really powerful.
It's actually what a lot of my next book is written about, is that you need to do these things. right? But what we do, you're right. In the US, we wait till the bad thing happens and then we are reactive. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because you know this. It's like all of our friends, the people who've gone through more of the tough stuff are cooler people, more successful, happier. So why not just do it instead? Put it into your life where you're forced to get out of your comfort zone, forced to face fears. It then decharges a lot of this stuff so that when bad things happen, you can handle them.
I agree 100%.
So let's move on to health, because you were out doing the documentary films on EFT and on raw foods. Now, doing stuff around health, granted, that's, even though we know it shouldn't be on the outskirts, it still is somewhat, although you guys have done a lot for getting it not so. But, you look at us out there as, I guess, do they even call us health nuts anymore? But, those of us really kind of on the cutting edge of health. And so much of what we use now, especially in the supplement world, comes from ancient traditions, yet there's a disconnect. And, what is this key? Like, what do we need to know from ancients and native wisdom that would really help us with our health now?
The one thing that I see, and I saw myself doing it a lot until we made this film, was I was bought into I was a health nut for a while, and I would get all my herbs and everything else, the bee pollen and things like that, and I would just kind of put together a cocktail in the morning, chug it, and go about my day. And that was kind of the way that I was relating to these natural substances. Something that I've seen in indigenous culture, and now I'm starting to see it in a bunch of, we're traveling the world and looking for the next culture we're going to cover in our upcoming film. And something I'm seeing in a lot of these cultures is, there's this reverence that they have for these medicines, and it's not just, oh, here's a leaf, let's combine the leaf with a little bit of that and a little bit of this and take it and then go about our day. It's like there is a state of mind, there is a state of being, I guess, to try to get really woo woo here,
Mm-hmm.
that they sort of have, and you could look at it as meditation, if that's the way that it sort of manifests for you. You can look at it as prayer. My grandfather used to say these incredible like graces before each dinner, and it used to make me really uncomfortable when I was young, because he would just get so into it. And before we ate this food, he would just kind of be not like Bible thumping, but he would just be in this kind of a trance, just kind of like praying to God as before we ate, blessing the food. And when I was young, it was so foreign that I didn't like it. But as I'm sort of investigating these cultures, I'm starting to see that they prepare their medicines in a similar way, not in a creepy way, but just really being thankful with a heart full of gratitude, and connecting in whatever way makes sense to them with the herbs and the other medicines that they're about to take. And I think that that's something that for me really shifted my perspective on this stuff.
I know. Just think if in the morning you got up to take like your morning supplements, or I take thyroid, and if I did a ceremony and
Yeah.
but I mean, think about how more powerful it is and how more open your body is when you're grateful, you've taken the time around it, and I've seen some of these ceremonies. It's like gratitude meets meditation, and you're just in a much more receptive space when you do get these. And that's probably a big part of how these things work in the first place.
Absolutely.
Is that
Absolutely.
mindfulness. So let's go into your documentary, because you took patients
Yeah.
and they go out into the middle of nowhere in little tiny jungle huts, and no comforts, no technology, and they're left there for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
So like, who did this? Like, how did you get these people to do? How does this happen?
I know. In some ways, it feels like I was like, this is some kind of a cruel joke.
Or it's a reality show. It's like Survivor, the documentary.
So yeah, we got it was crazy. So the nice thing about having two movies that came out beforehand was that we had communities around those two films, and I just I sent out an email to them saying, hey, if you are if you're interested in the healing information we've shown you in the past, we're about to do something that's even more extraordinary. And I told them that we were going to be taking 8 patients into the middle of the jungle on the border of Peru and Brazil to work with indigenous medicine men for 30 days. And they would be treating a variety of illnesses, and that anybody who had any type of disease or malady should apply. Within 24 hours, we had 400 applications and they had to be extensive applications. We were very, very picky. They had to have headshots and all kinds of stuff and share their life story with us. And so we had 400 applications to choose from, and we had to whittle that down to 8 people, which was a pretty pretty hard process. We had a panel of 5 people, and literally walls full of photos and profiles, and we were just kind of just being very I guess consciously selecting people. But so we had our 8 people, and like you said, they had a variety of illnesses. 3 different cancer patients, 2 of them severe late stage cancer. 1 Parkinson's patient who had very, very advanced Parkinson's. We had 2 different, 1 patient with Crohn's disease, 1 patient with IBS, another patient with severe depression, another patient with drug addiction. These were individuals this wasn't like we were taking people down who had belly aches and scraped knee. This was like, these were people that were at their wits' end, who had been failed by modern medicine, who were looking for anything to save their lives. And yeah, we put them in the middle of the jungle. And part of the tradition in the Amazon is, if you're working with the shamanic healing protocol, you get assigned what they would call a dieta hut. And that hut is a one room little maybe 8x8 hut in the middle of nowhere, away from anybody else, surrounded by jungle, with thatch roof and a thin screened walls all around. So you're really not even separated from the jungle. Especially if it's raining out, it'll still get wet inside there a little bit. And all you have is a bed, a hand hewn desk and chair, and your mosquito net, and that's it. And it looks kind of like torture. I mean, when you start watching the film, you're kind of like, wow, these patients, like, you took them away from their modern medication, their modern medicine, and the comforts of their own home, and now you're putting them in the middle of this wild wilderness with snakes, spiders, all manner of ways to die just from nature.
I know, that was my biggest concern, is like, weren't you afraid that some of them were going to die on the trip?
Yeah, well, I mean, but there's a method to the madness. I mean, like at first, it's like, what are they doing, and why is this part of the protocol? Is this just some kind of outdated way of healing that really needs to be revamped? And then you start looking closer at it, and I obviously had been doing a lot of work before I brought them down, which is why I agreed to do this, and I learned why this was important. And really, what's going on there is, there are a few things. One is, the part of this culture is to remove any distraction you might have, that would allow you to escape who you really are. So, when patients got down there, one big piece of criteria we had was, hey, don't bother bringing, you can bring your phone, you can bring anything you want to, but you're gonna have to check it at the longhouse, in the very front of the property, because you can't have any of this stuff in your hut, for 30 days. People brought down all kinds of things. They brought down, these these coloring books, spiritual coloring books, and like diaries, and books, Carlos Castaneda books about shamanism, and they were like shocked and appalled that we said that they had to leave those at the door too. They're like, wait, this is just my book. I can have a book. I can't even have a book.
So they literally had nothing at all. They couldn't write. They couldn't read. Nothing.
No, we took everything away, and the idea is, it's going to be you and nature, and there is going to be nothing else. They also had a hammock in there that you could swing in and sit on during the day, but that was it. And so the idea behind all of this is, if you're really trying to heal, and you're taking this seriously, and you're looking at your disease not only at not just as some bad luck that befell you, but as an opportunity for spiritual growth, then the requirement is for you to sit with yourself and with your illness for 30 days. And as painful as that is, and believe me, it was painful for the first week. People were going through it and were wanting to leave. If you're willing to do that, then you will receive a lot more wisdom than you thought, and very likely overcome your illness with the help of some herbs and other ceremonies. So the idea is, remove distractions, and remove anything that you could pour your consciousness into to avoid the things that are going on in the ticker tape of thought that is always constantly flowing behind your eyeballs. And not only in ceremony, be confronting those things, but in every hour, every second, every minute of every day, that you're there be in this state of, having to deal with yourself without being able to escape. And that's a big part of the healing process down there that I think a lot of people don't realize. You have all these people who go down to the jungle these days because they want ayahuasca, they want to take ayahuasca, and they want to have this kind of roller coaster, this cosmic roller coaster ride. But the reality is a lot more work than that. There's a lot more work than that kind of stuff.
And so these 8 people that went, what happened? I mean, just grab one. We can't. I mean, did they all get better, or did one just? I mean, what happened?
I will tell you.
I know we can't go. Everyone can watch the movie, but maybe
I'm going to repeat one thing that we say in the beginning, so I'm not going to spoil the ending. But
okay.
5 of them come back healed, 2 of them come back disappointed, and 1 of them does not make it back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And what about? And you were there the whole time.
I don't know why I'm laughing about that. It's not funny.
I know.
But you know what? This person who didn't make it back was actually a good friend of mine. So it's a longer story than that. But is
it in the film? News at 11. Okay. So and you were there. What about you? What was your big takeaway from the whole experience?
One of my biggest takeaways from the whole experience it could be summed up by this one of the shamans after this individual passed on down there. He and I were talking outside of this patient's hut, and he was bestowing a bunch of wisdom on me. A lot of it was about our perception of death and dying in the United States and in the Western world, which I thought was very, for me in that moment was extremely transformative. But something he said that's always stuck with me is, people have this perception of shamans as being the ones who heal their patients. He's like, we shamans don't heal our patients. We simply remove the blocks that are preventing our patients from healing themselves. And so that to me, I mean, it kind of goes into a few of the things we've already talked about. One, the idea of getting rid of distractions so you can truly encounter yourself and find those parts of you that are getting in your own way. I mean, Wim Hof talks about this with encountering cold and using that energy to find those weaknesses, those flaws in yourself, the places where you're getting in your own way. It's very similar. You're adding intensity so that you can, the intensity itself becomes an X-ray that you can where you can see into yourself a little bit and see where your weaknesses are. I think that this idea that shamans don't heal their patients, they present their patients with rites of passage and other opportunities for wisdom that allow them to remove the blocks that are preventing them from healing themselves. That was a pretty transformative thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's amazing. Just hearing this bit of it, who doesn't want to watch the movie at this point? How could you not? Just, I didn't realize when we met before that it went through 8 patients going through all of this there. That's crazy. So what about you? Now you've gone through all this. Now you're back home. So what's the thing that you do every day that makes the biggest difference in your life?
Oh man, that's a good one. So there's this about a year ago, I was down in the Andes. There's this amazing area where one of the shamans who's become a dear friend, my friend Roman Hannes lives. It's where the Andes Mountains drop off into the Amazon jungle. It's just insane. It's one of the most, I don't think there's any other place on earth like it. But we were hiking the Inca Trail, and doing every night we would do these coca ceremonies. We would chew coca leaves. Coca is the leaf that cocaine comes from. It's highly sensationalized here in the United States, but down in South America, it's drank. Every cafe in Peru, Colombia, Chile, Argentina has coca tea. It's completely destigmatized. It's a sacred plant down there. Anyway, we would do these coca ceremonies every night where you chew coca and you just kind of sort of sit there and you connect and you talk about meaningful you tell stories about your life that you feel are meaningful. And over the course of maybe 2 nights of doing this, we got into this. He was trying to show me this thing. This happens to me a lot with these guys. They try to show me this thing that I'm just too ignorant to really understand. It's a little bit humbling. And then you finally will get. Sometimes you finally get the nugget of wisdom, and you're like, oh, I get it. You have to kind of experience it. And one thing he was trying to explain to me is he's like, hey, Nick, what you're doing, what we did in the film and what you're doing with your community is amazing. It's really good. It's really good work. We have to get this knowledge out there, but you're missing this one core element. And I'm like, well, what's the element? He's like, you're missing like the way of being. He's like, you could talk about herbs, you could talk about ceremonies, you could talk about all this stuff, and you do it. You can talk convincingly about it, and it's great. But you need to embody this way of being, which is this state of connectedness to everything. And again, this is all very woo woo, and I'm sure some people listening will be, hey, this is where I turn this this podcast off. Right? There's this connectedness, and it took me like a year ago. I'm telling you, like I was going through this. I'm like, I don't understand. I think I do that. I think I'm pretty connected. He's like, no, you're not. He's like, because you still have thought. You still have this illusion of separation from the reality around you. And I was like, I don't even understand what that means. And it took me a while to even figure out what he was talking about. But anyway, I finally got it. And something that I do now to get into that state of connectedness with everything around me, and this dissolving of this curtain of separation, is simple meditation. I mean, I know at the end of all this whole interview, you'd think it'd be something a lot more cool and crazy than that. But I mean, it really is just me sitting there and letting myself stop thinking. I have this fear, and maybe we all do, of giving up this person, this story that we think we have of this person that we think we are, this name that we're given, and we I think I'm Nick, you think you're JJ. It's crazy. We're nuts. It's just part of our culture. But I mean, getting into a state every day where you can let all that dissolve for 20, 30 minutes has been insanely powerful for me. It's been, and again, it doesn't seem that surprising or exotic, but just simple meditation, 20, 30 minutes, if you can find the time to do it, especially in nature, for me has been a huge gateway.
Well, it's definitely been one of the most common answers to this, just so you know, like it's, and I think that just hopefully people listening, if you aren't doing this, you're just getting, hit over the head repeatedly with this it's taking time, it's letting go, it's stopping the chatter, and it's getting into yourself so you can just be. Yeah. And I know when you said all that, I'm like, I don't know how to be, but the more difficult it is for you, the more resistance, because that's been one of my big things, the more important it is for you to do it. Right. Yeah, exactly. So it is interesting that throughout the world, this is like one of those key takeaways that makes a huge difference everywhere. It doesn't matter where, which culture, what. Meditation's a constant. So for people who want to watch this movie, they can go to jjvirgin.com/Nick, and you've got a free screening that they're going to be able to watch, right?
Absolutely.
That is so cool, because even though we sort of know what happened with the 8, we don't really know the process, and that is just fascinating to me. So I can't wait to tune in. And again, it's jjvirgin.com/Nick. And thank you, Nick, so much for joining me today. So awesome. You're fascinating. I could talk to you literally all day, and I'm super excited about you having the book about this coming out. Of course, it's a year out, so everyone waiting. Watch the movie in the interim. Now, after the break, I'm going to be answering the listeners' questions, so stay with me.
You already know starting your day off with the right breakfast sets the metabolic tone for your day. And now, the perfect and easiest way to do this is with the JJVirgin's all-in-one paleo-inspired protein shake. This convenient, nutrient-rich, protein-enhanced meal comes in 2 delicious flavors, vanilla and chocolate, and is a huge time saver, ensuring your body uses stored fat as fuel, creates steady, sustained energy, and cuts your hunger and sugar cravings. Visit jjvirgin.com/products today and experience the easy way to lose more weight and keep it off. Visit jjvirgin.com/products and start your day with a healthy shake.
Welcome back. This is the time where we answer a listener's question. And today's question comes from Joan in Menlo Park. And she writes, JJ, I know you travel all the time. So how do you stay healthy on the road? All right, I got this down. And here's one of the things I'm going to tell you. Structure gives you freedom. So when you really dial in habits, it just makes it so much easier to stay healthy on the road. So the first thing that I do is I travel with a NutriBullet blender, my shake mix, and into my shake mix, I've already mixed in some extra fiber. So I've got my all-in-one shake mix and some extra fiber all blended in. Then I put my supplements together in a baggie. Now I have my daily essential packs, but I also put into a baggie some other things to help. I always travel with my microbiome balanced just in case things get a little wonky. And I travel with my sleep candy and some earplugs just in case. So that's super critical too. Plus I travel with my bars, and I particularly like my chocolate mint all-in-one bars as an in-betweener. So I always make sure I have some of those. Remember, I've got dark chocolate coconut fiber, dark chocolate mint coconut fiber, chocolate mint, and the new chocolate espresso or dark chocolate mocha. It's one of those names. I don't remember what we landed on. I just know that they are, oh my gosh, so darn good. Plus, I also always know where I'm going to work out. And a lot of times that'll be the stairwell at the hotel. As long as there's 4 flights of stairs, I'm golden. I will run up them either one at a time or take them 2 at a time, then come back down. And I'll do that until I've accumulated 4 to 8 minutes total of bursting. So I burst for a minute, recover for a minute, for 2 minutes, and go off and on. So the other thing that I do ahead of time is if I'm driving, I bring my exerciser so I can burst in my room, especially if I'm running at an event where I may not be able to go out into the gym because I'll get bombarded. But then I'll also bring my avocados and my coconut milk and some spinach. But I also tend to know with most of the places I stay now where the closest Whole Foods is, so I can grab some goodies. And I always have the hotel get me a refrigerator. And here's another key one. Tell them to give you a room away from the elevator. Plus, if you can grab a little filtered water bottle, then you're golden. So those are some of my easy little tactics for being able to travel healthy. Now, if you'd like to submit a question, then just head over to my Facebook page at JJVirgin Fan Club. And I have a little favor to ask. I would so appreciate it if you could jump on Stitcher or iTunes and leave a review for me. It helps a bunch. And be sure to subscribe and share the show with your friends. All right, this is JJVirgin signing off and reminding you to live courageously. Show up. Step up. You are stronger than you think.